Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Melissa Slotkin. We are back with our weekly Intel Brief where we go through three big issues, cut through the noise, focus on the things that really matter. You may have noticed that President Trump has been going after the chief of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. He's been pressuring him, and I want to talk about why that's important. The Federal Reserve, or the Fed as it's called, is the central bank of the United States. It's a committee of 12 people. Jerome Powell is the head of it. Their main job is to promote long-term economic stability for the U.S. economy. They set the standards for interest rates across the country and for things that eventually hit your mortgage, your home loan, your car loan, your business loan, your credit card interest rates. Right now, the president is pressuring Jerome Powell, I think first and foremost, to leave, but also to lower interest rates. And while everyone would love to see lower interest rates, especially on things like housing, I want to talk about why that political pressure on Jerome Powell is important and pretty disturbing for the long term. Whatever short-term goals the president has in lowering our interest rates and things we all want, we have to balance that against the long-term risk to the U.S. economy. If interest rates go down before we've managed current inflation, we could actually see inflation go up. And just as important, right now, the U.S. is the gold standard for the global financial system. Everyone knows that they can trust the objectivity of the U.S. economy. It's not influenced by the politics of the day, the whims and whimsy of the President of the United States, whoever he is. It's solid, rock solid. And because of that, we are the financial gold standard. Second, I want to talk about FEMA. You may have heard in Michigan we had welcome news this week. President Trump authorized $50 million to deal with our ice storms that we had this spring. That's a good initial step. I want to flag that the assessment we have right now is that the cost of that storm overall could be as high as $140 million or more. So we'll need to understand the fine print on that announcement. But it picks up on a theme that President Trump is really pushing right now, which is pushing more disaster relief responsibilities on the states instead of the federal government. That means fewer FEMA dollars when a state has a wildfire, an ice storm, all of those things. There is no way for the states to make up the costs when you have a big disaster declaration like this. It is particularly disturbing that this is happening in an era where we know we're going to have more storms, stronger storms, that disasters are on the rise. To have the federal government pulling back at that exact moment means that taxpayers on the ground, homeowners on the ground, small businesses on the ground aren't going to get the reimbursement they are hoping for in one of these act of God events that we see in these disasters. So we are watching that very closely. We are happy for this initial step, but we hope that the expectation is the federal government will still be there when major states have major disasters. Lastly, on the issue of democracy, let's talk a little bit about gerrymandering and partisan gerrymandering. You may have heard this come up this week, but just to review the bidding, gerrymandering is the process of redrawing U.S. congressional districts across the country. Every 10 years, we have a census, and therefore every 10 years, we redraw the lines of our congressional districts to make sure they all represent the same amount of people across the country. President Trump has done something pretty unprecedented and asked that we redraw those congressional lines, not when the census happens, but now, after only 5 years with the old lines. He's doing that because he said he wants to add 5 new Republican congressional districts in the U.S. Congress. He wants to make sure that in 2026, he keeps the House of Representatives, he keeps the majority that Republicans have there. So he's asked Texas specifically to redraw their congressional districts, to kick out a bunch of the Democratic representatives and redraw the lines to represent more Republican populations. This is something that both parties do. Both parties across the country in blue states and red states often engage in partisan redrawing. They pick their voters that they want to map out so that a district is inevitably Republican or inevitably Democrat. This, to me, is a real problem for democracy. And lots of states, but Michigan particularly, was a real leader on this, where we got rid of partisan gerrymandering. We created an independent citizens commission that redrew rational lines based on geography, based on space. I saw partisan gerrymandering in Michigan when I first ran, right? Michigan's lines used to be drawn by whichever party was in control in Lansing. So when I was running for my congressional district the first time, it was a district that was drawn to be Republican. And to give you an example of just how crazy specific these lines get, I was running to represent a district that had Oakland University inside its boundaries, but not the dormitories at Oakland University. The line carved out the dorms because they thought maybe some more young people might be more democratic. So we got rid of that in Michigan in some groundbreaking work that we did and passed a constitutional amendment to ban partisan gerrymandering. So again, I think we need a federal standard on gerrymandering. Nonpartisan, independent commissions in each state look at redrawing lines based on rational geography. But if the president and the other side of the aisle are going to start adding seats and redrawing lines, you can only imagine Democrats in blue states are going to do the same thing. One side goes nuclear, the other side's going to go nuclear. It's better off if we don't ever have to do that. We need a federal standard, nonpartisan gerrymandering.